What levels of cheapness have astonished you? Story 1. I went to a birthday party for my mother-in-law at a Filipino restaurant. Along with my wife and I, 4 of her friends were there. The friends ordered a mountain of food for the table. There were 7 of us there, but if there were a dozen, we couldn't have finished it all. This was a bit irritating right off the bat because while I was happy to pitch in for her birthday dinner, I didn't want to pay for 20% of a Godzilla feast from Westeros. It would end up being over $200 worth of food. So then the check comes, and I pitch in my credit card, and 3 out of the 4 friends turn into statues, except for the oldest gentleman who offers something like $15. I grab the bill and divide it up by 5, leaving out the dishes and drinks that my wife and I ordered for ourselves and tally it up, saying what everyone owes. Crickets. I remind everyone that they were the ones who ordered this giant mound of food in the first place, half of which was going to go to waste. To prevent awkwardness, my mother-in-law grabs the bill and runs off, leaving my credit card to go pay it. My wife prevents me from stopping her and causing a scene. I quietly lay into the 3 deadbeats at the table for letting an elderly woman on a fixed income pay a $200+ bill for her own birthday dinner. I lose it and call them total moochers, and whoa, suddenly there's that scene everyone was working so hard to prevent, with them screaming at me and me screaming back. The restaurant owners understandably intervene and toss us all out. I go back in and apologize and explain what happened. The restaurant, to their credit, knocked 40% off the bill out of nothing more than kindness. Salo Salo Grill in Las Vegas yell, and cancel the charge on my mother-in-law's card. And I picked up the rest, which was still quite a bit, but I felt a lot better about it. Hey, speaking of Las Vegas, and Salo Salo, I've eaten there before. Oh, if you've never eaten at a Salo Salo, I urge you to go. The food is absolutely amazing. I love it. The various meat platters they have are just amazing. I'm tasting it in my mouth right now as I'm describing it. It's just gorgeous. Treat yourself. Story 2. My dad is a physics professor at a university, which if you know of this breed of humans, none of this might surprise you. He, I swear to all that is sacred, goes to the cafeteria on campus and makes a meal out of the free condiments. Mexican-style chip salsa, chopped onion packets, crackers, etc. Then he'll call me to brag about it. Another one he does. He found a store that sells expired food for a ridiculously low price. He said he spent $20 and now has microwavable popcorn for life. My dad never buys new tires. He buys used ones that the shop keeps when people replace them. He gets the tires for super cheap after negotiating them like $15 to $20. The best part is that he avoids driving to not waste gas so much that the tires actually never wear out. They just rot. When he feels like splurging, he will buy a pork shoulder, which is a lot of meat for about $7 to $10. He cuts off all the meat and grinds it along with free condiments from a cafeteria into a cylinder shape that he wraps with shopping bags from a store. Then, he freezes it. When he wants some, he slices some pieces off like patties and sautés them. In its own oil, of course. This will last him months. One time, he called me while I was cooking. He asked me what I was making, and I said that I was cooking spaghettis. He said that spaghettis is about 3 times the price per mass as rice, and that I threw away my money. He doesn't use toilet paper, just water, which is actually cleaner anyway. That was a lot of information right there. Is it just university professors that are known for being this cheap? I'm all for bargains, but wow, this stuff is borderline dangerous. I have never heard of tires so old that they rot. I do understand the thing about spaghetti versus rice. I've been to some Asian countries, and I know the perception that rice is more for poorer people and noodles are more of the classier substance. Rice is cheap, though. So are rice cookers. Story 3. I worked for a short time as a luxury travel agent, and agents get tons and tons of free stuff all the time. Every day, there would be vendors setting up in the conference room for breakfast, lunch, and afternoon snacks, which we got for free. We just had to go listen to the vendor's pitch. This would totally go to some of the old school agents' heads. The agents in the office next to mine were notoriously cheap, especially the 60-something-year-old boss. They would push their way into the conference room, throw their business card at the general director of the poor vendors, and take as much food as possible. Multiple plates piled high. I'd pass their office and the food would be just sitting out on the desks uneaten. The boss was known for showing up at vendor-sponsored dinners and events with his wife, uninvited, and they'd bring plastic Ziploc bags and fill them with food from the buffet to take home. He made a ton of money, so it wasn't out of necessity. He was just insanely cheap and entitled. My favorite story about him was that our company used to go around the offices some Friday afternoons in the summer with an ice cream cart, and everyone would grab something. One each because we're freaking adults in a professional workplace. Not this guy. He filled a manila envelope with like 20 ice creams, labeled it property of name do not touch, and put it in the office freezer. My sassy coworker used to steal ice creams from the envelope all the time for our office just to spite him. Tasted so good. Maybe this guy was poor to begin with. He was used to doing this kind of stuff when he was scrimping and saving. I think those kind of habits die hard, even when you make a lot of money. I think it speaks to the mentality of how he operates with all of his money going forward. Maybe that's why he has all this money now. He didn't spend everything so frivolously. Story 4. I delivered pizza last fall for some quick Christmas money. We had a customer that, I was warned, didn't tip. The manager said he would order the cheapest thing on the menu for delivery, not tip, required napkins/plates, and would demand his change. He lived 3 miles away in an ugly little trailer. I clearly remember each of his orders. My first time there, he looked shocked and said he'd never seen a girl driver. He had ordered 6 chicken wings, and his order was $7.86. He tipped me $1. When I got back and told my coworkers, they were shocked. The next time, I forgot the plate and napkins. He told me he needed the plate because he shared the wings with his dog. I had napkins in my glove box from Taco Bell. He asked if I had hot sauce from there too. He took everything I kept from fast food restaurants. In that short amount of time, he told me that he was a disabled veteran fighting to get his pension and that his friend that has a business let him clean the equipment and paid him a few bucks for it. The next time, I paid for his food. The next, I got to answer the phone and asked him, wouldn't it be cheaper to get a couple of cheeseburgers? He said, yeah, but McD's didn't deliver. I did though, and got off work in 30 minutes. I don't work there anymore, but I still bring him food every so often. Story 5. My parents are both very cheap, but my dad is especially not generous. One summer day when I was maybe 13 years old, my dad finally agreed to take me to get my eyes examined. To his surprise, I didn't need glasses. He insisted I wouldn't. He reminded me that he had only agreed to get my eyes examined, not to actually buy me glasses. So if I wanted the glasses, I would need to have them be my birthday present. I really wanted to be able to read the boards in school, so I agreed. My birthday is on Christmas, and I always got a combined gift. So now I had to wait a year and a half to get my next present, and I knew it was my fault because I chose the glasses. I understand that parents can't always pay for things, but there was something especially cheap about turning buying me glasses into an excuse to not need to get any presents a full 6 months later. I don't really talk to my dad anymore. Story 6. Saw a guy take money from the tip jar to pay for a muffin like it was nothing. Poor cashier was in shock, I guess, because she didn't say anything. And this was from a cafeteria in an office building. Guy who did this was wearing an expensive suit. This would tick me off to no end when I worked at a coffee shop. The tip jar isn't a mandatory tip. It was exactly only for us when we went above and beyond for a customer and they wanted us to have extra. I had people go, "Oh, I'm short," and just rummage through the jar for $2. I had to stop them more than once and tell them it isn't a free goodies jar for you to buy that extra donut, you runt. Servers don't get paid enough as it is. The U.S. system is totally messed up in that they found a way to not pay people minimum wage. They force the customer to subsidize them. And somehow we've stuck with it for all these years. And for some reason, people have been trying to convince everybody this is how it's always been. No way. Fight for a living wage. Fight for a thriving wage. And don't take from the freaking tip jar. Story 7. When I delivered pizza, there was a guy who ordered from us 2 to 3 times a week. And the conversations would go like this. Customer. How much is that? Me. $18.35 total. Customer. Okay. Tell the driver I'm paying with a $20 bill and I want $1.65 back. Never tipped, never smiled, never said thank you. One Friday night, his order was the last in a 5 to 6 order run, and the previous customers had all taken my coins and loose change. I ended up shorting him a dime and apologized. By the time I get back to the store, my boss is on the phone trying to calm him down because, to quote, I refused to give him his change. Story 8. Psh, 1 year? My grandparents lived through the Depression. They waste nothing. Their freezer is a menagerie of ancient treasures. Last year, we ate Thanksgiving at their house. My mom did all the cooking, but my grandma contributed a couple of desserts. One was a marshmallow jello sort of thing with pistachios. When we got done eating, she proudly declared that it had been sitting in the freezer since 1996. She was afraid we'd find out and would waste it by not eating it. Weird thing is, it was still tasty as hell. Too long didn't read? Grandparents fed us 15-year-old puddings. Story 9. My grandmother, as she didn't own a computer, had to mail in all her bill payments. 1 month, she didn't get her water bill, or it was delivered to someone else by accident. Whatever the cause, her next bill was for both that month and the previous month, and included a late fee that was less than the cost of a stamp. For the rest of her life, she skipped the bill 1 month and then paid both the next because she saved a few cents by just using 1 stamp instead of 2. This was a woman who had somewhere around $1 million in the bank when she passed. I wonder what other deals this person came up with. I mean, I don't disagree with the thinking process, but the profit margin on this is just far too small. Did she have any other deals like this where she thought bigger and was able to get a bigger refund back? I don't mind creative accounting. I don't mind creative legal accounting. But this is just nonsense. Story 10. Last night, this happened at a fair. The man at the front of the line for ice cream offered to pay for all the kids in the family behind him because he was taking a while. He gave the booth $40 and said whatever was left over should go to the charity. The church was running the ice cream booth. The people with the kids' ice cream totaled $21, and they insisted for the change back. It wasn't even their money. When the lady refused, she asked for the manager. What the hell? Story 11. A group of folks went out for dinner at a convention, and several people had leftovers. When we returned, one of the people who had not been able to get out to dinner was bummed. So one of the diners said, "Well, I have some leftovers if you'd like them." "Sure." "Okay, my meal was $10, and there's about half of it left, so you owe me." "No, I'm not kidding." "No, it was not me." Story 12. I was a bartender at a country club. Employees are allowed to take home any food left over from weddings. After a wedding full of drunken jerkwads throwing things, grabbing waitresses, and other stuff, the mother of the bride marched into the kitchen demanding 2 things: that all the leftovers be given to her right now, and that the 18% tip added onto the bill for us should be removed. After explaining that she had already paid enough for this wedding and didn't want us getting anything else from her. This was after she had made sure that no tip jars would be out for us because they would take care of us later. Oh, they took care of them later, all right. That is just mean. I mean, you expect the bridezilla to be the focus of a story like this, but no. How much you want to bet that it wasn't even her paying for the wedding, that it was the husband? Story 13. My economics teacher in high school once told us that he adopted 2 Chinese girls instead of having his own kids because statistically, Asian girls eat less, so he would be saving a lot of money in the long run. I believe his exact quote was, "When we go to McDonald's, they can split one hamburger and it's still better than the gristle they were eating in China. What a deal." This didn't strike me as being quite so racist until some time later. Story 14. We used to frequent a bar/club when we were younger because they accepted our fake IDs and sold $1 beers on Friday nights. We were buying rounds of beers, and I'll never forget one of my mates coming up to me as it was my buy and telling me that he would like to opt out of that round and if I could just give him the $1 instead. Story 15. My grandfather had a firmly held belief that any drink served in a restaurant should cost no more than 10 cents per glass. So if the restaurant charged $1.50 for a sweet tea with free refills, he would sit there until he drunk at least 15 glasses. Nobody else could leave until he was. Story 16. Whenever we all go out to eat as a group, my grandma's boyfriend, man-friend, significant other, likes to get everyone's free lemon wedge that typically comes with their waters, squeeze them all into his, and then add a packet of sugar so that he doesn't have to pay for a lemonade. Story 17. My mom had a boyfriend that would pull the stems off of cherries before purchasing them from the grocery store because he felt they'd weigh less without the stems and he'd get more for the money. He probably saved $1 over 10 years. You can't argue with savings. Story 18. My girlfriend invited me to her mother's birthday party, and tonight she revealed to me we would be dining on leftovers from her brother's rehearsal dinner a year ago. Maybe saving leftovers for work the next day? But a year later? What the hell? Story 19. I had a bunch of cheap Bic pens when I worked as a server at Applebee's. I left one with a table so they could sign the receipt. I watched the dad sign it, get up, start walking away with his family, turn around 6 feet later, go back to the table, and pocket my pen. Story 20. My mom and I once went to the cinema with a new friend of hers. As we were leaving, the friend found $5 under one of the seats and then made us stay back in the empty cinema while she checked every row for any more fallen cash. Story 21. My grandma would take my brother and sister to a restaurant, and instead of buying us milk, she'd make us drink the tiny creamers. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.